everybody, this is Adam, and welcome back to the Garage Gym Experiment podcast. We're here to go over the insights we discovered from last week's surveys and to dig into some other hot topics. Jake is here too, and once again, we're joined by a special guest. This week, we have Jake Boly. He is a strength and conditioning coach. He holds a bachelor's in exercise science, a master's in sports science. He was the first employee at Barbell and helped build out their content catalog for a number of years. These days, he's building That Fit Friend, which is focused on reviewing workout shoes and apparel. Jake, nice to meet you. Thanks for jumping on with us. Before I get going, is there anything else that people should know?
Not that I'm aware of, other than you did ask me like 2 seconds ago how to pronounce my last name. You said Boly. It's Boly.
Damn.
It's all good, man.
I did it. I was going to do it for sure. Yeah. All right. Jake Boly's on with us tonight, guys. We're excited to have you, Jake. I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to go ahead and just say you are probably the fittest person to ever appear on the Garage Gym Experiment podcast. So you now hold that title.
Yeah.
I don't do that, because then if people go look at my shit, they're going to be like, dude, this guy's not that fit. Yeah. And then it's going to be so awkward.
With the backflips. Yeah, dude. Fit guy, guys. We have a number of items we're going to get through. First, we're going to talk about the Scout Hyper. It is the best reverse hyper for home gyms? Maybe? Then we're going to move on to survey results. A number of questions of this week revolve around shoes, racks, barbells, and a couple of Rogue's most popular products. All right, Jake, can you start us off by telling us your thoughts on the Scout Hyper?
Yeah, I sure can. And let me actually start off by telling you the level of interest from the community, because we did ask a survey question about the Scout Hyper. So the level of interest, you could either choose high, medium, low, or I don't know what that is. 13% voted high, so not a ton. 25% voted medium. 39% voted low, and then 24% don't know what it is. I'll start off by saying I'm not like in the details with too many mechanics of the gym. Typically just look at like what do I like to use and what's best for home gym owners. I'm not someone that's going to say, oh yeah, it works your lower back to better than anything else in the entire world. But I do want to say that the reverse hyper movement has, without question, saved my back. I have been injured several times. Just using it has quickly reversed some of that pain. And it happened just a couple weeks ago. I was sick. I slept for a crazy amount of time and got hurt. Like I just like, I couldn't hardly move. That was almost the worst part of being sick. I don't know why my back was hurting so bad, but first couple days I worked out, got the Scout Hyper out, and felt pretty relieved. So I don't know, Jake, I'd be curious as somebody with a background like yours, if you're a believer in the reverse hyper or not.
I think it has some use. Is it my go-to? Not necessarily. However, I do think it has some use. The problem with the reverse hyper that I have is that it relies so much on momentum and gravity. And so when it comes to like what I like to do, which is like more so directed towards skill-focused strength, like the deadlift or hypertrophy of the back, it doesn't really tick any of those boxes. However, when it comes to the context, like what you explained, it makes total sense as to why it probably helped you out, man. Because if you weren't moving a ton over the last week when you were sick, and then you got into there and you started getting some like meaningful hip extension and just moving and loosening up, then it would make sense as to why it helped. But I do think it has use. It just doesn't fall into the realms of like where I play the most with my training.
Got it.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Hyperextensions they have that stigma of being that big, clunky tabletop where you rest your phone and your drinks, right? They're super helpful, but you're not going to use them all the time. The Scout Hyper for a garage gym, for a basement gym, is awesome. Lean it up against the wall, bring it out when you're ready to use it. Yes, you get some rock in there when you get the heavier weight and the momentum, but for what it is and the price tag for under $400, the Scout Hyper's legit.
I'll just add to that. I'll just say for most people who aren't looking to max out their reverse hyper, the Scout Hyper is probably the best option for most people with a home gym. Like Adam mentioned, for most people, it's probably not worth it considering the amount of space they have if they have to use a traditional reverse hyper. So the Scout Hyper is usually the choice for a lot of people who want the option but don't want it to take up the precious space. I'll just add quickly that it really just takes a minute or two to set it up and fold it back. It takes up just about a foot of wall space, maybe a little more. And then for under $400 before shipping, it's not too bad. So for the home gym population,
yeah, and if you really want one right
big
now,
fans of it.
You can't get one. So currently back ordered. So you need to get on the notify list on Rogue and wait for it. So I would like one currently, and I had to sign up for the back order list recently.
Jake, have you ever tried this?
I haven't, and you know what's funny? I actually just Googled it to look at it. Dude, I love that you can fold it up. That's sick. Especially for like the utility of it.
Yeah.
That's freaking dope. It's cool that they made a version that you could fold up and store away easily.
Well, only 13% have a high interest, so we'll see how
these
that
guys
changes.
have caused it to back order this 13%.
Yeah. Well, it's funny when that thing first came out because it's recent. I was guessing prices in my head with a buddy of mine, and we were doubling the price of what we thought it was going to be, and it came out, $400, or right now I think it's like $365 before shipping, and with that price point, it's awesome.
It's also not made in America though, so that's part of it. All right, let's move on to some more survey questions. So to start us off, where are your primary shoes from? So the possible answers here were the big three that you would think of: Nike, Reebok, Adidas, and then other. So what do you guys think out of those four had the most percentage that was voted for?
I'm gonna go with Nike.
Yeah, I'd go Nike as well.
Yeah, so we did this survey last year as well, and I was surprised that Nike didn't blow this out of the water. Nike received 33% of the votes, Reebok 19, Adidas 9. So Nike had more than Adidas and Reebok combined, but other made up 39% of the votes.
That's awesome.
So
I love that.
Jake, give us an other shoe.
Yeah, so it's funny, like I'm going through my head because my top three models right now are not Nike, Adidas, or Reebok. And it's cool because you're seeing so many new companies and small companies come up, and they're finally getting the traction that they deserve, because I think for so long we've defaulted to these big three, and like very rarely are they really innovating and creating really great products that last. A lot of times, like folks that I talk to, at least with my review content, it's like, oh yeah, I bought the Nike latest Metcon and it broke down in like 5 fucking months, and that's like, shit, it's 130. Like that sucks. So my favorite shoes right now, I'm rocking the Strike Movement Haze Trainer a lot in my training. I am rocking the new Rad 1. That's a pretty solid model from Rad Global. They're brand new on the cross training shoe scene. And I'm trying to think of who else I keep in rotation. Because I'm like, it's hard because I'm rotating between so many shoes. Like those have been my like go-to, like for anybody who's like, give me your favorite like all-around style shoe. Those are my two right now.
yeah, it's probably similar to when people say, what barbell are you using right now? I'm like, well, it's whatever I'm testing out at the moment. But I mean, to give you perspective of what people said, it was everything from Zero shoes, Vans, Vivo Barefoot, so there's quite a bit. Notorious Lift,
Interesting.
Noble, Under Armour.
Interesting.
So,
Barefoot shoes are picking up
Yeah.
steam, I swear. It's like, and I guarantee it's because like all the zealots are like, you need to wear barefoot shoes because it's primal and your toes are fucked. And it's like, all right, we should recognize some context here, but I could dive into that later on. But that's really cool that more people are training in barefoot shoes because of what I would guess is the utility that they see with them.
In the home gym as well. You don't need to wear shoes. So I definitely have like a large rotation of shoes. I mean, I'm staring at like 7 pairs right behind me that I use all of them. Here. We're on video, right? There they are, sitting underneath.
Yeah.
But when I'm doing my compound lifts, I like to train barefoot because it feels good. But then when I'm doing other things, I throw a pair of shoes on.
That's actually a good lead into our next question, which is how many shoes are currently in your workout rotation? So either 1 or 0 for those that are barefoot all the time. 2, 3, or 4 or more. And I'll be surprised, only 11% said 4 or more. 21% said 3. 42% say 2. And then 26% are 1 or 0. Jake, what about you? How many are in your rotation? If you weren't doing content, what do you think?
If I wasn't doing content, I would probably, because I like to train barefoot too, but I also like weightlifting shoes for my squats. But I also use cross-training shoes for my cross-training. So I would say probably like 3 to 4 pairs. I'd probably have a pair of barefoot shoes, a cross-trainer that's a bit more focused for HIIT, that has a little bit more forgiving nature throughout the midsole, then a cross-trainer that I could lift heavy in and also do different movements in, and then probably a pair of weightlifting shoes. So probably 4. I'm probably a little bit more bougie than most people.
What's it like lifting barefoot at a commercial gym?
You know, like I'm the dude at my gym who like walks in his Crocs and like kicks them off and he's like strutting around barefoot. So I'm sure some people are like, God, this fucking guy. But it's honestly like it depends on the context of your gym, because I think if you're respectful and like you're in a squat rack or you're on a deadlift platform, and you like kick off your shoes and like put them back on afterwards, you're fine. Like my gym also, for context, is a private gym to where it's like it's open to folks who are signed up all the time, but it's never like more crowded than like 8 people at a time. And the whole floor is like rubber and like turf, so it's not super, super gross. But I think as long as you're respectful, most gyms won't mess with you. However, I have been told many a times to put on my shoes, which I totally respect and understand, and that's why I do keep a pair of barefoot shoes in my bag just in case if I'm out on the road or traveling with my girlfriend, and people do give me crap about it, because I totally understand. Like, some people have some nasty-ass feet. Arguably, my feet are less dirty than the floor and my outsole, but, I mean, we could dive into that later.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm pretty inconsistent with training barefoot, but I'll do it every once in a while. But in the winter, even though I have a garage that can be heated pretty well, the ground stays really cold. So I'm like, the stall mats are really cold. So I never really do it once it's like after September. Okay, well, speaking of barefoot, this is really leading into our next questions pretty well. So how often do you train barefoot? We actually asked 2 questions around this subject. Do you train barefoot at least once a week? And then do you usually train without shoes most days of the week? So about 33% are training at least once a week, and then 21% are doing it more naturally or on a regular basis.
The difference there is like the deadlift only guys, because like that's become a popular thing, like just deadlift or pulling barefoot. I mean, there's only like a 13% drop off between one time and multiple times, but just curious.
Yeah, it seems more like a powerlifting thing too, and we have quite a bit of powerlifters.
When I picture powerlifters, I picture the high top Vans, or a flat hard shoe. I don't picture a lot of barefoot. I know they do have like the socks, like the grippy socks, so they can pull barefoot. But I don't know. I'm not a powerlifter, so.
I was going to say, I don't know if training with socks
counts
as training barefoot. Would you say?
I would say so, yeah. Yeah, the topic
ahead,
of barefoot training is super interesting to me, because our footwear changes so much of our mechanics, especially in different movements. And so, like, for like example, like, do I train barefoot for my squats? No, because I'm a lanky ass dude, and truthfully, like, I don't have the ankle mobility to actually hit depth well and efficiently without having some form of heel elevation. However, for RDLs, deadlifts, basically anything where I'm pulling, I will generally go barefoot or wear a barefoot shoe. And that's because, like, if we talk about like the specificity of each movement, your shoes can really feed into that. So it is really interesting to see how many folks are utilizing more barefoot style training. And it honestly is so good too that they are. But there's so many layers of context there. Like, if you really want to go unpack it, that it's cool seeing, I think more people explore different styles of shoe for their training sessions.
I wish we would have asked this last year to see how that changed this time around, but we will definitely make sure to ask this again either later in the year or early next year, just to see how that changes. But like, we did a number of shoe questions last year, and there were so many people that said, no, I'm just barefoot. Like, they're like, there's no response for just barefoot. There was enough people that was like, oh, there's quite a bit of people barefoot lifting out there. So interesting stuff. All right, let's move on to, do you own weightlifting shoes? What % do you think own weightlifting shoes? Home gym.
A small percentage of powerlifters.
I'm going to go 34.
All the weightlifters. Probably about 3/4 of the CrossFitters. Yeah, let's go. I like 34. I'll make it interesting, and I'll say 40. But it's same ballpark. About a third.
No, you guys are way off.
Oh, good for you guys.
56%.
Nice.
You know what I like about weightlifting shoes is I've had the same pair for like 6 years. They just last forever.
That's my thing too. And it's like whenever I do weightlifting shoe reviews and talk weightlifting shoes, people are like, "Oh, I don't want to spend $200." I'm like, if you just take good care of them, they'll last you for a long ass time. And like obviously there's some odd cases where the shoes do break down here and there, but yeah, I love that point, Jacob, because like if you just wear them for your lifting sessions and you don't like just beat them to shit or wear them when you're not supposed to, they should last you multiple years. So your investment does go the distance in most cases.
Yeah, I really want to buy a new pair of shoes just to like branch out. But it's like it's definitely not something I need.
Jake, I have to ask, what's your go-to? What's your favorite pair of weightlifting shoes?
Right now, my favorite is the Legacy Lifter 2.
Who makes those?
You know what? I also just realized that both being called Jake is pretty confusing sometimes.
I'm asking a shoe question. I'm not.
Yeah,
not
I started answering that. Yeah. You know what's funny though is I've had one pair of lifters and it's Legacy Lifters. I don't know which model they are. That's how.
Probably the first. If you got them a couple years ago, they're the ones with the 2 straps. Yeah.
Yeah, they've got 2 straps.
Legacy Lifter. That's the OG one.
I remember when I bought them too. It was like a Reebok sale, and they were like $50.
The best.
Reebok used to have some crazy sales. I don't know if they still do. I'm just not on that email list anymore. But okay, this is also a pretty interesting one, probably for Jake. Do you typically read reviews before buying workout shoes and apparel? So 59% say they are buying workout shoes, or say they're reading reviews on workout shoes before buying. And then I was pretty surprised about this one. 41% said they would read reviews before buying apparel. I was pretty surprised.
Both
with me. What do you guys
those
think?
numbers, I was like, oh, okay, yeah. Both those interested me.
I was going to say, I think it makes sense because with how invested folks are into their training, and I feel like even with their gear, like we all have that like sunk cost fallacy where it's like we don't want to feel like we're wasting our time, our money, etc. With how much we get invested into this hobby, and with how many different companies are trying to like funnel shit into our like mouths every fucking day, I think it's actually really nice that folks are exploring different models, because I think that also helps speak to the fact that people are learning of these smaller companies and possibly trying out new shoes that they may have never been exposed to if they were just like, oh yeah, I'm a Nike person, I'm just going Nike, you know. I think it's really cool, and I think it speaks to like to what you guys do, where people are interested in this stuff so much to the point that they want to make sure they're not getting ripped off. They want to make sure they're meeting the context of their needs. So actually those numbers don't really surprise me. And it's in like, you would think with lower ticket items like that compared to like garage gym stuff, they would be a little bit lower, but I don't know. I just, with how many companies there are and how invested we all get into this hobby, it makes total sense that we want to make sure we're not getting burned on what we're putting on our feet, what we're wearing, how it's going to hold up for our training and everything else, because I hate wasting money, and I know pretty much most people hate wasting money too.
Yeah, it is interesting. Just to put it in perspective, we asked this question about home gym equipment last week, and it was 63%. So like people answering questions from a home gym account, it's pretty much the same as workout shoes. So, you know, that's pretty impressive. And when I think about it, whenever I read reviews on workout shoes, it's when I'm branching out like just a little bit. I'm not a runner, but I always have a pair of running shoes. And if I see something I like, I'm always at least doing a double check on what are the reviews out here, and more than just the consumer reviews too. I am looking at like what's the best running shoes for somebody over 200 pounds. You know,
yeah, I'm staring
like
at like $300 of shoes in like my 2 or 3 running shoes that I force myself to wear because I spent the money on them, but they don't feel good on my feet. So if I would have done better research, I wouldn't have been like, you know, one of them's a pair of Hokas, because, you know, if you're running, you got to wear Hokas, right? I slap a pair of Hokas on my feet, and I don't like the way they feel. So, you know, it's stuff like that where, like, yeah, next time I go to buy a pair of shoes, I'm going to do my research and find something that fits my style and my size a little bit better.
Yeah, let's move on to the next question. We're going into home gym equipment type stuff now. So where are you most likely to buy a power rack from? So either Rogue, Rep, Titan, or other. As expected, Rogue was the winner with 48% of the votes. Rep had 24, Titan 11, and then 16.5% said other. This is something we asked as well about 6 months ago. So it did change slightly. So I'll just go over the percent change, which kind of aligns with what we're seeing in other surveys around gym equipment and companies this year. So Rogue was down 10%. They were still number one, but down 10%. Rep was up 31%. Titan down 4%. So, for example, that went from about 12% to 11%. And then other stayed exactly the same at 16.5%. So seeing a little bit of Rep eating into Rogues, but Rogue is still kind of the...
Yeah, we've been saying that just with everything, all the other questions we've been asking. You know, when you first read the numbers, I was thinking like, wow, that's a kind of a low number for Rep. And then you just shared that it's a, 30% jump from last time. So that makes more sense.
Yeah, so it went from about 18% to 24-ish%. So.
Cracking one open.
All right.
It's like right in the mic. It's so loud.
Yeah.
Hey, Jake, we talk about this a lot, like going to commercial gyms. Like, do you really pay attention to like the racks you're jumping on? Or is it just like, oh, that's the rack, I'm jumping into it?
I do. You know why? Because I've been burned before in the context of, I was at a commercial gym like 5 years ago, and I was like prepping for a meet, and I was going to rack the bar, and this rack had like really tiny J hooks, and it totally slipped and bounced out when I went to rack. Never again. It was such a scene, and people were staring at me. I was so embarrassed I want to poop my pants. So now I'm very conscious of like, okay, like especially if I'm prepping for a meet, and I'm like super focused and I'm getting a little bit heavier with my squats, I do pay attention to what I'm using, but then also like I'm a strength coach and I compete in powerlifting. So it does make sense that I'm a little bit more in tune to it, but to answer your question in short,
yes. No, that's awesome. A lot of home gymmers, like when they were commercial, they're like, I had no idea what kind of bar I was using, what rack I was using. And that's how I always was. And like now that I have my own stuff, if I visit a commercial gym, I'm always like, what kind of rack is that over there? What kind of style they using? And it's like nothing I would have thought of before, you start building out your own space. It's just interesting to hear.
Yeah, I feel like it is really cool because it's like, I don't know, it's your own customizable space, and it's like similar to like I just bought a Tacoma this year, and I'm starting to like mod it out a little bit. And now I was never a truck dude. I was never looking around other cars, and now I'm like, what is he riding? What is he riding? So I'm sure it's like the same thing where it's like we all have skin in the game now, so now we all want to know what everyone else has.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. I'm curious to hear Jake's guess on this one. So how many barbells do you own? The possible answers were 0, 1, 2 to 3, and then more than 4. So Jake, how many percent do you think own 0 or
I'm going to say 21%.
He's got a good grasp of the crowd there.
Maybe because the way I phrased. Yeah. So about exactly a third are 0 to 1. We've got 45% 2 to 3, and then 22% 4 or more. And then just a quick comparison to last year, those that own multiple barbells is up 11%. So it went from something like 60 to 66 and 6.67, so 2/3. Yeah.
Do specialty bars get counted in this?
See, I had a few people reach out and ask that question, so maybe I need to specify. But I think yes. I was hoping people we're thinking.
Cool. I was actually going to guess 2 to 3 would be the most. You know, it's funny because I don't even own a home gym and I own a barbell. So
what kind of barbell do you
I
own?
literally have no weights. I have a power bar because I was prepping for a meet this past fall and I was going to a gym that just like, dude, their bars were like noodles. They were all bent. And I was like, I'm just going to buy a barbell. So I just bought my barbell, like brought it to the gym, locked it up. It was just that guy who everybody knew as like, oh, you're the guy with that barbell. And I was like, yeah, the one that's sharp and will cut you. Don't touch it, please.
You know, I was watching. It was probably Barstool Sports or something, and they had a video of some kid like going to the gym with a barbell, and the girl's like, you know, they got bars there, right? And in my head, I was like, no, that kid's smart. He brought his nice barbell. He didn't want to play with those junk. They were making fun of him. I didn't think it was that funny. Wrong crowd.
Yeah.
Wrong crowd.
You could just assume that those folks don't train hard enough. That's it. You're laughing because you don't understand. You don't have 400 pounds on your back to where it matters.
Right. And yeah, just to add on to it, this is a really good question that will be interesting to see with knowing that a lot of these people answering the survey questions continue to answer year by year. How many are going to have 4 or more by the end of this year? Or how many are going to have multiple next year? So it'll be interesting. There's also like more people are steadily learning the value of having a specialty bar or like just it's the education is slowly but surely catching up to even the normal home gym owner. So whereas maybe 5 or 6 years ago, if your typical home gym owner saw somebody with a specialty bar, they'd be confused. But I think people are starting to realize the benefits that they can have. And the prices are going down. You can get a relatively good specialty bar from even somewhere like Titan for a couple $100. So, anyways, let's move on to: will you do an organized race or lifting competition this year? And this comes after Adam and I signed up for a 50-miler run in
Yeah, buddy.
October. So to the results, 32% plan on it, which is kind of similar to what we've seen from years past as well.
Very cool. Where's your guys' 50-miler at?
Doing the Indiana 100. It's like in Albion, Indiana.
Nice.
It's in the middle of Indiana.
It shocked me where it was.
It's in a place. I'm from Indiana.
Well, it's just north of Fort Wayne, and like I know that area. I didn't know there was anything there, but there's a 100-mile race there. So we're gonna show up and run 2 big circles, and we're gonna jump off the air and then ask you, Jake, what kind of shoe we should be wearing, because it's a trail, and my trail shoes have a huge toe box, and I'm just slamming my feet into the front of it. It's painful, so I need a new trail shoe.
What do you wear? What are you wearing right now?
It's a Nike Trail. It's really I just really like the colorways on it. It's Nike Trail Wild Horse. But yeah, just like this huge toe box, and like, man, my toes are just getting wrecked.
We just had a Wild Horse review actually just go up live on this site, I'd say a couple weeks ago. Yeah, it would depend on the type of terrain and everything else, but once you get an idea of like the terrain you're going to be tackling, and then also just if you let me know, after, like we can even do this after the podcast because I don't want to dive into this right now, but let me know in like the width you like and stuff, and we can go through a couple different really solid brands to look into for you.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, last question is the level of interest in the Rogue Echo bike. So high, medium, low, I don't know what that is. So quite a bit more interest in the Echo bike than the Scout Hyper we mentioned above. But 30% say high, 30% say medium, 36% say low, and then 3% don't know what that is. This is something we asked as well back in July of 2021. And the overall interest is definitely lower. So, for example, in July, 36% voted high compared to 30 now, and then 32% said medium compared to 30 now. So, seeing a little bit of a drop there. That could be simply a change in the audience, or it just could be it's not quite as new or cool.
That and like, you know, a lot of people, it became a super popular home gym cardio piece of equipment. A lot of people added it to their to their space. I wonder how you would vote for it if like you didn't have it and it's really high. I want to get it. You get it into your space and you vote again. Where are you going to vote? You know, that'd be interesting to know like how that affects it, because like so many Echo bikes are out there now.
Yeah, I think the heart of the question is still, even if you own it, what's your level of interest?
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I do get a couple people saying, I already own it, you know, which I think kind of throws it off. But I think it's like you're still able to get a sense of how many people are interested in it, which is quite a bit, and then how is it changing over time. It's not perfect.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Not all
that's
these are
just
perfect,
like
but-
the platform we're dealing with. If Instagram had like 2 more choices, we would have been ready to roll.
And that's the last
So that
survey
means
question.
we're going to jump
So-
into a Q&A with Jake Boly. Jake, are you ready for some questions?
Hit me.
All right, let's start
Let's
it
do
off. So your time is split into a number of different ways right now. Can you explain your different roles and how much time you're spending on each of them?
Yeah. So basically, once I started the journey of entrepreneurship, let's say, I was wearing a lot of different hats, and the site I'm running now and like the whole business and the YouTube channel, That Fit Friend, started out as a side hustle because my primary thing was starting up a training business with my buddy Ojin Loki. He runs the Instagram page Physique. A lot of folks have probably seen it. It's the one with the drawings and the pink guy. So you have likely seen it. So I started That Fit Friend actually last February as like a side hustle. And I was splitting my time like 50-50 between that. And then obviously like there was some freelance work that I needed to do just to pay the bills. But those were my primary roles. But since I have pretty much shifted into That Fit Friend full time, I still have like personal clients. Like I still have 10 remote clients. I still have like a training app that I sink some energy into every single week when it comes to coaching. But like 2022 for me has been a year of essentialism in the sense that saying no more to things I don't want to do and that don't serve like the business that I'm trying to build, and saying yes to things that I enjoy doing, and that is building That Fit Friend. So I wish I had a fun, like cool, really neat answer for you, but right now it's primarily building that vertical. So writing content, editing content, filming, editing on film, doing podcast content, trying to keep up with social and not get burnt out on that front. And then coaching a little bit. So it's probably like a 95-5 split right now, or 90-10, I guess you could say.
And then do you primarily coach powerlifting?
No. So my primary lifter right now is like the mid, like I would say like 20 to like 35-year-old intermediate guy who just has a general interest in strength and hypertrophy. Like they know their way around the gym. They don't have any want to compete. They might be the weekend warrior. They like to go out and party on the weekends. They basically want something that's going to help them keep the wheels on based on the lifestyle they like to live. So I don't really work with beginners anymore just because I don't think I have the time allotment to actually help out a beginner as they should. So that's why I keep my list pretty small to a very specific kind of clientele. Also, I don't work with women because I don't think I'm the best guy for that job at it by any means. But yeah, so it's mostly guys like I would say probably like ourselves who are just intermediate lifters who are super interested in getting stronger, growing their muscles, looking better, etc.
Yeah.
Do you have anybody who is training out of a home gym?
Trying to think. I do have a couple folks with apartment gyms, which are not obviously the same thing, but I'm trying to think if I have any clients right now that have home gyms. I actually don't think I do. During quarantine and during like the lockdown, I had a few clients, but now they've since have gone back to like their normal gym and their commercial gym, and so we do work out of there. But I don't think I have anybody with the garage gym. I have one lifter actually transitioning to a garage gym, literally next training block. So if you asked me in like 3 weeks from now, I would have had a better answer for you. But mostly, no. They either train out of their apartment or they go to a commercial gym again.
So That Fit Friend, you review shoes and apparel. How would you say that you differ from other review sites?
Oh, man. You're going to open up a can of worms here. So the reason I wanted to start this site is because there's so much bullshit in the review space. And like, I love that more and more people are looking at reviews to learn what to buy in the fitness space. But the problem is that a lot of people don't recognize that not all reviews are created equal. As in, a lot of folks and a lot of media companies pump out reviews and they never actually test the gear. It's like, could you imagine going to a site and buying a squat rack based off of somebody who's reviewing that rack but never actually testing it, and then you sink money into that, and it's like, that's what frustrates the shit out of me. So like, what I want that fit friend to eventually become and build into is basically an open forum and a community that is open about product reviews, open about different experiences in it, and being able to engage with the actual person wearing the gear. Because I think that's another thing too, where it's like, you go to these sites like a Men's Health, and you have like whatever staff writer is employed at the moment writing these reviews, and it's like, okay, like, I'm not going to ask you, who like doesn't probably really train that hard, how this shoe performs. So to sum that up, man, it's like trying to connect with people in a sense that's like, hey, I'm a lifter, I'm an athlete, I hate wasting money, like, let's bullshit and let's talk about how this product actually performs. And trying to cut through the noise of so many of these sites and platforms that just pump out the shit to make money, but they don't actually test the gear. And that's why, like, for that FitFriend, for example, like, I am the only one on that site that owns the cross-training shoe reviews, because I don't think it's right to build out these best lists if you've never actually tested all the models that you're plugging in them. So I'm very, very strategic and very, like, headstrong in some ways to be like, I'm the only person on the site reviewing cross-trainers. I'm the only person reviewing weightlifting shoes, barefoot shoes, because when I build out these best lists, I want to have the best level of context possible. It's very clear to see, like, if you look at some of these different review sites and platforms, that it's like, okay, like, this writing is different than this writing, even though the writer is the same, and it's because they're not actually written by the same fucking person. So I can go on for days about this and my frustrations with this side of the industry, but that's basically like the nuts and bolts of like what kind of keeps my fire lit and kind of keeps me what basically keeps me going every single day. And that's like just this ongoing fight against just crap content, crap review content, and platforms and stuff like that.
We got to ask a follow-up then. Okay, you get a shoe or a piece of apparel in. How long will you sit with that before you complete a review? I mean, I'm sure like the ideas start churning right away as soon as you put it on. You have some ideas you want to write about, but when would you feel comfortable pushing a piece out?
And this is where this is a great one, because I am constantly going back and forth like internally about this, because obviously you want more months in the model, but then it's like also like for my business, like it does kind of matter that I get eyeballs and stuff on the content. So what I do now is I give myself like a good 3 weeks of training in the shoe. And so how I keep my shoes in rotation, because I do barefoot shoes, I do weightlifting shoes, I do cross-training shoes, and like more like training shoes, so more like HIIT shoes, class shoes, etc. I have all these shoes like set like in a spreadsheet where I have all my notes and everything, to where I'm constantly rotating them out based off of drops that are coming and when like the timeliness is of them. So what I'll do is I'll give every shoe 3 weeks of testing. This usually includes like around like 8 to like 12 workouts. If I really love the shoe, it'll sometimes be more actually. And what I then do is I make a note in my sheet where after 3-4 months, I'll go back and update it if it needs to be. A good example here is the Nike Metcon 7. I got up that review in like the first couple of weeks of it being out, but I started to have the outsole lip off when I was training outdoors playing pickleball one day and like working out after that, and the outsole started lipping off of the midsole. So I go back in, I update that content, and that's generally around like 3 to 6 months depending on the model and generally like when that company is going to drop a new one. So Metcon 8 will probably come out sometime in the fall or late summer like normal. So I thought it was a fair time to update that review. So to answer your question, generally like 3 good weeks of training, and then from there I will update and I make notes to update too to make sure, is this shoe holding up? Is there anything that I should warn people about? Is there anything that I've experienced to get ahead of and stuff like that?
Okay, so I have to ask, you put on a shoe and you absolutely hate it, right? You have a ton of experience with shoes. You have to put something on and be like, this shoe's terrible. Are you still giving it the full 3 weeks, or is a quick try on enough for you to be like, this ain't it, and it's easy to say no?
It depends. Like, I've been reviewing shoes now for like 5+ years. So yeah, to your point, like it's gotten a lot easier for me to be like, okay, like I can guarantee you I know exactly when this midsole is going to start compressing. But that being said, have I put on a shoe that's been really bad? Yes. And it's like pulling teeth, man, to try to get through those training sessions. And like, will I do as much volume? No. And the reason being is One, since I'm rotating through so many shoes on a regular basis, and this does include running shoes too, and this does include barefoot shoes, like I do have to be a bit mindful of how much I'm beating up my body, because it's usually like not very healthy to rotate through shoes so often, just because there is a learning curve. Every shoe's last is slightly different. Every shoe's interaction with the ground is slightly different. So when I do get bad shoes, if it's like glaringly bad, where like my performance is like, bruh, like this is really going to hurt me, I will cut it down a little bit. Generally, I will still give it like a good 2 weeks. But if like I put on a shoe and like in the first week it rips, like I also get pissed off. And so I will push through it, but it's definitely pretty frustrating to do so. And I try to like remain unbiased still and like not like let my emotional like frustration cut into the review. But at times it can be difficult. But if a shoe ever does feel like just really, really, really bad, I will cut that volume down, because I'm mostly worried about like my longevity to do this, because I'm constantly burning myself out trying to test so many shoes. Like literally every other training block, I hit a wall to where like I need like a good 4 to 7 days off of training entirely. And it's like, it's the game you play when you're trying to do such high volume with some of this stuff.
Yeah, speaking of high volume, you start getting into some of those running shoes and they have mileage where they say they're going to break down. And I mean, are you trying to hit those miles when you put on a running shoe? That's hard to do.
That's where it's tough too. And yeah. And that's why with running shoes, like that is the one product category, and trail running shoes, where I do have a little bit of help, just because like, dude, like, and playing in both worlds, like being a true hybrid athlete, like if you're not running something too, like if you're a natural athlete, like you only have so much you could physically do. So that being said, for running shoes, I don't produce such a high volume with them, because I am trying to get to that mileage mark. But at the same time, like I just am not running that much mileage on a weekly basis with all the training, because I'm not like a true marathoner or triathlete. So with running shoes, I produce less of a high volume of articles, but that is a article and vertical where I do have folks helping me who do know running, who do put in the hours and miles and whatnot. So to answer that too, like I try to, but at the same time too, with running shoes, it can be really difficult, because unlike training shoes, I think running shoes, if you put on a really poor fitting pair, they can beat the shit out of you really fast. So I do try to be a bit conscious of that too. And it's an interesting line trying to walk there. So I'm still trying to figure out that actual aspect of the business. Like training shoes, cross training shoes, weightlifting shoes, barefoot shoes, I have a pretty good system now for them. But running shoes and trail running shoes, I'm still actually trying to figure out. So that was a really great question. Thank you for asking.
Well, I'm just thinking, like when I buy a pair of shoes and they say like, hey, you're going to need to change these out at like 500 to 700 miles. Man, like if they burn out at 3, I'd like to know that, So that's tough to get to that. So you definitely have to have some running robots out there getting some miles in for you.
Yeah, I just need to be like, someone needs to put me on like a good stack of like SARMs and anabolics to where I could just go for days. It sucks being a natural athlete trying to train this much, dude.
All right, well I got a power lift, and then I got training. I got a 50K this afternoon. Okay, I'll be fine. Just eat a little more. You'll be fine.
Yeah, right. More rice.
There's no such thing as overtraining. It's really just under recovery, right? Is that what I heard one time? Joking.
Yeah, try starting and running a business and saying that same shit. Like I'm just like, the amount of times I burn myself out mentally, physically, emotionally. Like, dude, I could have a scoreboard.
Your CNS is just dragging as you like get through your day. Oh man. All right. Well, let's talk about how many shoes are in your rotation right now, and like a full catalog. So I know you break it up into your barefoot, your powerlifting, your cross training, weightlifting. How many shoes are you touching like in a rotation, like a 3-week rotation? Is it just what's out there, or?
So generally it varies between like 4 to 8-ish. Generally on most weeks it's like 4, but there are weeks and months where drops do come a bit more frequently. So on those weeks and on those like periods of time, I do try to like rotate a lot more. So for example, like if I have like a training shoe that's designed for more like classes and HIIT, I'll use those like in addition to the cross training shoes I'm testing on different sessions. So I'll do like a conditioning session, and then I'll do like a more like cross training, like strength with like a blend of different stuff for the cross trainer. So most of the time it's 4, and I run that based off of the category and how I want to test the shoe and how it's intended to perform. But at times it will actually uptick a little bit more. And then I have to be really strategic with calling my shots in the training sessions too, because at the same time, like we just talked about, it can be a lot testing so many different things and not fucking running into walls constantly. So I try to break up the sessions, and if I'm doing more volume with the shoe content, I'll actually bring down the training session volume that I'm doing in regard to like single sessions. So I'll do more 2-a-days where there's shorter workouts. I'll do more like bias training towards whatever the models are I'm doing, and then I'll be really strategic with how much is actually in those workouts to give them a good, honest test and review without burning myself out as well.
Yeah, you don't think about writing, apparel reviews and then like the motor is you, so you have to take care of the engine, right? That's interesting. Interesting to hear, for sure. All right, so any personal favorites that you're working with right now?
One of my favorites right now that just dropped was the Rad One. I know I mentioned them already, but it's cool to see like new company like that come to the cross training shoe scene and kind of like come out fighting and really nail like I think a good first model. Like, could it be improved aesthetic wise? Yeah. Like, is there areas they can improve their construction? Sure. But like as a first pass, that shoe has been really fun to train in. I mentioned the Strike Move and Haze trainers already. I like that model a lot. And then I'm trying to think of what else I have in rotation right now. The Reebok HIIT 2, it's like a class focus shoe and a HIIT training shoe. And it's like more budget friendly, so it doesn't get as much press, it doesn't get as much attention. But like for being a shoe for like more athletic focused stuff, plyos and whatnot, I've been really digging that shoe lately. And that's always like, I love that when you find like some of these more like off the beaten path, like budget friendly models from some of these companies, and you're like, damn, this is a great ass shoe. Like, is it going to be my shoe for maxing out my deads? No. But like when it comes to like being like a good solid like all arounder for just your general workouts, like it's a pretty solid shoe, and it's like $80 to $90, which is like, okay, that's a steal.
Yeah.
So those are a couple that I'm just trying to think, because like there's such a high volume right now, and I have like my content calendar in my head that like those would be I'd say like my 3 latest that I've like thoroughly enjoyed training in.
Yeah. What if you had like an all-rounder athlete, like likes to do a little CrossFit, likes to run a little bit, bodybuild, power lift, HIIT train, does it all. One shoe to recommend, what would you say? Like a cross trainer? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, it would be a cross training shoe for sure. I'm just trying to think, because like this is always the biggest question that I always get on YouTube. It's like, well, I do all these things. Like, what's the best? And it's like, what are your load capacities? What are the amounts of plyos you're doing? Like, are you doing a ton of like HIIT training every single week? Because I'm not going to recommend a super stable cross trainer if that's the case. But if I had to give you a best of all worlds style of shoe, I know I mentioned them already, so I feel bad. Like, I'm not getting paid to fucking drop these companies' names, by the way, or the shoes. Honestly, like I would probably take the Haze trainer from Strike Movement right now, just because like that shoe, like I've deadlifted well over 500 in. I can use them for plyometrics. They don't beat the crap out of me. I could wear them on shorter runs if I really want to, and they don't feel like I'm like dying like in some Reebok Nano and Metcon models. So that would probably be my go-to. And then if I had to follow it up, I would say maybe the Rad 1, and then maybe like a Reebok Nano 10, and that's an older model, but that's also a really solid one that they are still producing, because I think they missed the mark with the 11, and they know that. So they keep the 10s in rotation still, and like they haven't sold out yet.
Yeah. Heard bad things about the 11 when that one dropped.
Who makes better workout shoes, Nike or Reebok?
You know what's funny? Like, every year they come out with their latest and greatest, and I feel like they're constantly either trying to one-up each other or see what the other one is doing, so they try to get ahead of that curve. Because it's like, if we look at like the evolution of this last year, right? We have the Reebok Nano 11. The reason so many people hated that model is because it's very different than all the other Nanos. It kind of lost that edge that it had for CrossFit and being so focused for that style of training. So I think a lot of people in the community felt like they were burned almost, and like, well, like what the fuck? Like, we gave you so many years and so much money into this style of shoe. Like, why would you train it to like the shoe of fitness? And then it's like you have the Metcon 7, which also like low key kind of like I would say lost its kind of Metcon edge and feel. And both of those models, I think they were trying to be like more fitness and more like inclusive to like being more general, but I think they missed the mark on some of these strength athletes who are like, well, fuck, like neither of these shoes are that great for my style of training. And that's why I think maybe some of these smaller companies are growing. But if I had to pick who makes the better shoes consistently, I would probably say Nike, but that's not always the case, because it's like I would take the Reebok Nano 10 over the Nike Metcon 7, but then I would take like the Metcon 4 and 5 over the Reebok Nano 10.
So it's kind of like this trade
it's like a constant
year.
back and forth.
So number one goes to Reebok, but yeah, overall Nike.
Yeah,
interesting.
And I always geek out over like the shoe technology, the science that they're making like the fastest person. Like you've been in this review game for a while now. How has that evolution changed in the time that you've been in? Like the science behind building the shoe.
It's really cool because like when you really get into the weeds, you learn like how many different last constructions companies will use for their models. They're understanding how to build lasts that are way better for folks' anatomies when it comes to like actually how the foot interacts with different styles of training. Also, like if we look at like midsole materials, like a lot of companies are coming up with their own style of midsole, which has been really cool to see too, because it's not just like your general like medium density foam EVA midsole or whatever. It's like actually getting a little bit more proprietary in nature. People are starting to source better materials for these style of things, and I think we're getting better at creating shoes that walk a better line in all these different worlds, where you can lift 500 in them, but you could also do a bunch of jumping and you could do shorter runs and they don't beat you up. Whereas like if you look back to like some of like the first Metcon and Nano models, I think they did fall a little bit short on that front. Like some of them were, yes, really good. Like the Metcon 4 is still one of my favorites. But it's been really cool seeing the evolution because every single year these companies are trying to put their own spin on what they think is like the best shoe for training based on all the feedback and all the reviews that they got from the prior year. So it's been really interesting and really cool, and it's really nice to see companies, especially smaller companies, try and build better shoes based off of their interpretation of what it means to have a good shoe for fitness.
All right, personal question. Shoe doping, is it a thing? Is it real?
What is it?
Shoe doping? Have you heard of shoe doping? Like there are shoes that are illegal to run in races because they give you such an edge over your competitors.
Oh.
So they got the carbon foot plate, they got the angles.
So I have heard of that, but I've never like really dove into it because it doesn't really pertain to what I do. But no, I in the sense of like strength sports, no. But in the sense of running, yes, I have heard of that.
Yeah. I always get lost in the weeds in some videos and just go diving in on shoe doping. Off topic. All right. Jaws, cut that one out. All right. What are some of the most overrated shoes you've tested out?
Let me take a second to think on this. So I feel bad bashing these shoes. So some of the latest models that I think have been overrated is the Under Armour Project Rock 3. Like I just think like with the Project Rock line, like it sells out, but that was just a terrible model. The 4 is much better, and I also thought the 2 was decent, but the 3 is a good model of like, yeah, a lot of people bought this because they thought it was like Project Rock, really cool, and then they trained it and they were like, this shoe sucks, and the fitting was terrible. I want to say the Nano 11, but I kind of want to walk a fine line here because the Nano 11 is very different than the 10. Do I think they're overrated? To an extent, but I also think like for like a general training folk, like they're pretty damn good. And so it's like it's tough to say that they're overrated, but that's a model that sticks out to me where it's like Reebok, you kind of fucked up a really good thing you had going with this shoe, and now you've kind of like really like almost blown up the Nano line. So I'm hoping that the 12 is a little bit better. I'm trying to think if there are any other ones where it's like you see like all the Instagram hype on them and then they just like fizzle out. I think the Metcon 7 overrated too. Like that model came out and they were having such a good year with the 6, and the 6 was so solid, and they dropped the 7, and it's like cool, you added this tongue lace lock thing that just kind of gets in the way and it really doesn't offer much functionality, and you change the whole shoe. Congrats. Like this doesn't even hold up well. Those would probably be my main ones. It's really tough to say because I try to be unbiased as much as I can, but there have definitely been some models along the way where I'm like, why the fuck do people like this so much? I don't get it. But those would be my 3 go-to right now, I think.
Cool. All right, we're going to go into like a buy once, cry once situation. It's echoed in the home gym community, spend the money on those good things. Is there something that you'd recommend with purchasing workout apparel where, maybe a little expensive, but it's well worth the money?
I think for guys, like a good pair of workout shorts, because there are so many different companies now making like high performance workout shorts that I think investing in a really good pair is actually kind of a really good thing to do. especially if you are barbell training or you are doing anything that's a little bit more ballistic in nature, just having a good pair of shorts that hugs really well, doesn't feel like you're swimming in your shorts. It's not like the old school ones that Dad used to wear to the rec where it's like there's no compression liner, they're super baggy, and they're getting torn up because the knurling. So I think a good pair of workout shorts would probably be my number one. And there's so many different companies that produce like really good quality shorts, I think, too, for strength training. But other than that, like, I don't want to say like a top because truthfully, like, tops are overrated too because it's so much a personal preference as well. Like most of the tops I wear are literally just friends' brands that I like to rep. So it's not even like so much like the athletic stuff. If you're a power lifter, a good pair of deadlift socks you can never go wrong with, just to avoid any nicks on the shins. You shouldn't be dragging your barbell up the shin anyways, but if you still fall into that queuing, like, it's good to have just to avoid getting blood on a brand new barbell, especially if there is brand new knurling. And other than that, I'm a pretty simple man. I would say probably just like a good pair of deadlift socks and a good pair of workout shorts.
Cool. Those aren't crazy expensive, are they?
Not really. No, a good pair of socks you can get for like 15, 20 bucks.
yeah.
And then a pair of shorts will range between like, I would say like 50 to like 68, 78 on the higher end if you want to go like super high end bougie.
Sure.
Do you have brands to recommend for shorts?
Yeah, I've been rocking 10,000 for a while now. I keep them in rotation with company like with Roan. I like to wear Roan for like more like versatile style training. That's not my go-to for barbell work by any means. Lulu I will rock for outdoor training just because their brief is super lightweight, especially in their pace breaker, but I will not wear that for barbell training ever again because my crotch is blown out now twice in pace breakers, so I don't really fuck with that because at the bottom of the squat the last thing you want is a bunch of air hitting the genitals and then you're wondering, did I just do that? And then I'm trying to think of who else makes good stuff. I don't want to say Viore because like they don't really make really great high performance stuff. Their stuff's way more casual. I would say those are probably my big three. Like, and it varies based on the context of what I'm doing too. I wear 10,000 for like more serious training sessions. Rowan for like my more like, let's quote unquote call it like athletic focus work, and then Lulu if I'm like playing pickleball outside or running outdoors or training outdoors.
Cool. All right, we got one more question for you. So building out that fit friend, what's been the biggest challenges you faced, like getting it all going?
Honestly, bandwidth. It's been like the issue that I've run into, especially over the last 2 months. Like in the last year, just for context, like I've published over 180 articles, and like I write all of my own things, I edit all of my own things, I film all of my own content. I've published over 200 videos, and I edit all of those myself too. I'm starting a podcast, and like really, it's just like keeping the wheels on the track when it comes to like the mental energy and being able to show up in other areas of my life too. So not only just build that fit friend, but also like be a good partner, be a good dog dad, like all of these things that you don't necessarily think about when you're in the weeds and thick of it. So trying to stay on top of everything while producing high quality, high volume content has been the biggest thing. And I know eventually to scale I will need to hire folks, but my problem is like letting go of control and losing out on quality and losing out on that voice. So that is a bridge I will have to cross eventually, hopefully towards the later half of 2022. I'm hoping to get at least like another like 9 to 12 months of myself just chugging along and producing as much as I can, but definitely trying to keep up with everything that's going on in the industry, and like also like trying to keep up with clients and coaching. It's taken its mental toll on me. Like I'm just coming out of like a good week and a half of being a bit burnt out, and it's like you guys got me at a good time, so I'm on like the up and I'm not like down and depressed and like, guys, I fucking hate my life, but I like love what I do, so it's really tough because it's like all I want to do is go, but I have to realize like I'm a human. I only have so much physical energy. I only have so much emotional, mental energy. And there are other areas that I have to show up for outside of that fit friend.
Jake, you got anything else?
Yeah, I have a question on the future of, you mentioned cross training was kind of your bread and butter. Do you have any predictions over the next 5 years as to like what's going to make the best shoe, or how is it going to evolve? Maybe running as well. I think those are kind of shoes that are kind of always adapting or kind of changing at the quickest rate. But I mean, really what I'm trying to get at is any changes in athletic footwear that you can predict that for the better, I would say.
And I think circling back to that survey question before about how the big players are losing out on some of their market share, over the next 5 years, I am really hopeful that some of these smaller companies will start pushing some of these bigger companies to start producing, I think, better quality stuff. Because in a lot of ways, I think the bigger companies' products have fallen off, and a lot of these smaller dogs are coming up, and people are realizing, like, hey, I've been treated like shit for a while by this big company, and this little company, yeah, they cost a little bit more, but like they're sourcing their materials way more responsibly. They're creating really great stuff. So in the context of how that will hopefully change cross-training shoes, I'm hoping that it's going to create like a much more level playing field. And it's going to help everybody elevate their games. It's like with any industry, as soon as you get better and better and better quality, everybody else starts to get leveled up. So I'm really hopeful that some of these smaller companies create a push on these bigger companies to actually start, I think, doing better and like hiring people to actually build better stuff. Because like I don't want to bash on like Nike and Reebok, for example, and like their team over there, because I know they have like so much other stuff to worry about. But like a good example is like their Nike Savaleo weightlifting shoe, right? On their fucking product page, it's somebody doing a banded curl with like a literal band. It's like, this isn't even what the shoe is supposed to be used for. Like, hire somebody who knows what the fuck they're doing. Like, that's something that I think littler companies is going to help elevate the shoe game. And hopefully, I mean, we just see more companies use responsibly sourced materials, because that is something that I'm constantly thinking about, especially being in the review game and constantly cycling through shoes and apparel and like trying to donate them or give them away. Trying to figure out a better means so we're not so wasteful with some of our consumerism, especially when it comes to shoes and apparel, because those are in a lot of ways fast fashion stuff. So hopefully these companies will get better about this and create products that are better for the environment. And then hopefully we continue to see them use better materials in regard to like the rubbers, the foams, the upper construction, like the knits, the textiles that they're all using to create shoes that are way more durable, so we don't blow through a pair of cross-training shoes every 4 to 6 months if you're really going hard. Like, there's no reason my Nike Metcon 7 should be fucking broken after 6 months. It pisses me off. Even when I think about it now, it's pissing me off. So it's like I'm hopeful that companies will continue to innovate in the sense of the materials they're using to last longer, to be stronger, to hold up to the increased training demands that we're all putting on them, but then also that more and more companies will start sourcing better materials, because I feel like in 5 years we're only going to have a bigger problem with waste and everything else that's going on in the environment. So we need to get a little bit better and more conscious and ahead of it, and hopefully more companies join in on that.
Man, that's a great way to wrap it up. Jake, you ready? Cool. All right, guys, that wraps it up. We want to thank Jake from That Fit Friend for joining us tonight. Jake, can you give us a plug? Where can people find you?
Yeah, you could find me on Instagram at Jake_Boly, Boly. My site is once again That Fit Friend. And then if you want to subscribe to the YouTube channel, means the world, helps a ton. I don't need you to go like every video and watch every single thing. Like, that's not what I'm asking you to do. Chime in when things interest you or when they're relevant to the context of your life. But you can find me on YouTube at Jake That Fit Friend.
Awesome. All right. Well, did you like tonight's episode? Then be sure to follow Garage Gym Experiment on Instagram to take part in our surveys. Stay active on the website to get up-to-date content on building out your home gym. Give us a follow on YouTube and keep listening to the Garage Gym Experiment podcast. Jake, anything else for the people? All right, you heard it from the boss.
Nope.
That's it, guys. Bye.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Absolutely.